Welcome back, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed the last 3 videos. And before we get into today's, which is chapter 17 out of this textbook, it could be a different chapter in a different textbook. Let me say a couple of things. First of all, if you like what you see here, give us a call with your comments, 760-534-4434, or at the end of the video, make sure you subscribe below. You can leave your comments, and once you subscribe, you'll get notified of future videos coming up. We have a lot of short Reels videos directing you to new things happening. I want to make one point regarding the textbooks before we go on. Okay? Some of you will have this version of the book. This one is in Spanish. It makes no difference. There's an English version as well. Some of you will have the version that I am currently using, this one. If you're a cosmetology student, it's the same thing. There's a couple of different versions. Understand that the companies that make these textbooks, principally Cengage, C-E-N-G-A-G-E, makes the Milady textbook, and a company called Salon Fundamentals makes the Pivot Point book. These companies have thousands of employees. They make money by selling textbooks. Every 3 or 4 years, they put a new cover on the textbook and they move the chapters around and they sell it for $150. I've been doing this for 40 years. I owned a school for 30. I've seen a dozen versions of the book. There's nothing new. 2 and 2 is always 4. The opposite of yellow is always violet. The required level of decontamination is cleaning and disinfection between every client. These things never change. They make you think they change because that's how they sell textbooks. They don't change. Right? What does change is the specific questions, because the state has, depending upon what field it is, maybe as few as 500 questions for nail technology and 2,000 for cosmetology. Barber's right around 1,000. They have 1,000 questions in their test bank. It's the same 1,000 questions every year. It doesn't change. Okay? They can't change 2 and 2 isn't suddenly 5. But what they do is they just randomly select your questions. And people call us and they're always shocked. They'll say, I got a 68 on my test and took it again, I got a 65. And none of the questions were the same, which is amazing to me that people would think they would be the same. Okay? Now, the newest textbook is in bright red. Again, it's the same information, just rearranged. You don't need to go out and buy a new textbook. The book you should buy is this little book right here for $50. It has 10 practice tests. Each one has 100 questions. It pretty much covers every single question in their computer test bank. You're going to get, depending on your state, between 60 and 110 questions. Every state is what's called pilot questions. They are experimental questions for future tests. Some states have only 5, some states have 10. They don't count, but you don't know which ones they are. They're experimental questions for future tests. If everyone gets them right, they know the question's too easy. Everyone gets them wrong, the question's too hard, but you don't know which ones they are. Now, there's all my lecture on the textbooks, okay? If you feel you need private training, maybe you're already out of school and failed your test several times, give us a call. We do private training. It's done on your phone, WhatsApp or FaceTime, depending upon the phone you have. It will cover every chapter in the book with special heavy emphasis on the 5 big chapters. Chapter 4, Chapter 13, Chapter 16, 17, and 18. Hair cutting, chemical services, hair color, infection control, and shaving. Now, some states like California have 20 questions on shaving. Some won't have like 5, for example, like Texas. We have all of them. Now make sure you give us your telephone, give us a call, 760-534-4434. Now let's get right into Chapter 17, Chemical Services. Permanent waves, chemical relaxers, and soft curl perms, also called curl reformations. When I was in school, we were doing 4 and 5 a day. This was gimme questions. We had done so many by the time of the test, we knew this in our sleep. Today it's not the style so much, especially permanent waves or relaxers. Students are struggling with this, and there's enough questions on the test to fail you. You should look forward to about 8 to 10 questions out of Chapter 17. Another 8 to 10 out of Chapter 18. So today we're going to talk just a moment about permanent waves. Okay? There's a whole lot to know about chemical changes in the hair. The thing to keep in mind is that all changes in the hair occur in the cortex. Now they could ask you that question straight out. In which layer do all changes occur? The cortex. Or they can make it seem much more complicated than it really is. And they can say to you, in which layer of the hair do permanent wave changes occur? The cortex. In which layer of the hair do chemical relaxer changes occur? The cortex. In which layer of the hair do soft curl perm changes occur? Surprisingly, the cortex. No matter what they say, it's the cortex. In which layer do blow dry changes occur? The cortex. Okay, you got the point? Every change happens in the cortex. There will be questions about the bonds of your hair. There's many kinds of bonds in your hair. Peptide, polypeptide, keratin. The one they ask is about side bonds. This is what you must deal with to make chemical changes. Permanent waves, chemical relaxers, these side bonds. I can't really get into it deeply here because it would take 20 minutes. Trust me on this. It's on page 586 in this textbook. Tells you all about side bonds. And this book tells you all the questions on side bonds. The other thing to be asked about heavily is end papers. Surprisingly, little thin pieces of paper. End papers. And what is their function? And the book tells you their function is 3 things. Keep the hair smooth, keep the hair straight, and prevent fish hooks. There's always a question about end papers. There will be questions about how do you begin wrapping a perm? Where do you begin? Where do you end? How do you rinse it? All of these very practical questions, which a few years ago you had done thousands of times, you knew, now you haven't done it all. They're all in your book. Then it gets into chemical relaxers. Yeah? Sodium hydroxide. Not to be confused on the test with sodium hypochlorite. Sodium hypochlorite is bleach. Sodium hydroxide is chemical relaxer. Okay? They will ask you about proper rinsing techniques. Keep in mind, all chemicals get rinsed in warm water. Sometimes they use the word tepid, T-E-P-I-D. It doesn't matter. Hair color, bleach, permanent waves, chemical relaxers, all rinsed in warm or tepid water. Finally, curl reformations and soft curl perms. They're the same thing. Those of you who old remember Jerry curls, that's what it was. It's just now without the grease. Okay? Soft curl perm, curl reformation. It is an old-fashioned permanent wave done on African American hair to make it less curly. The only difference is the perm solution on Caucasian or Asian hair is a liquid. They take the same chemical in a cream form for African American hair because African American hair is not as porous, it's slower to absorb. If you used a liquid, it would just drip on the floor. The cream sits there as it soaks into the hair. The process is the same, the chemical is the same. Now that pretty much concludes the race through of chapter 17. If you have any more questions, feel free to give us a call, 760-534-4434. Please subscribe to our site at the bottom. We'll send you the free list of vocabulary questions, and drop us an email or a phone call with any questions you might have, and hope to see you again tomorrow for chapter 18.